Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Paramita and I heartily welcome you once again to my channel. If you are new to my channel, I would request you to go through my channel, the videos, and if you really find the content helpful, so please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. So today in this lecture, in this video, I'll be looking at another chapter of the novel Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence. Today in this chapter, I'll be looking at chapter 12, which is titled as Passion. So without any further ado, let's get straight away into the lecture. So like I said, this chapter is, titled as passion. So that immediately tells us that the main focus of this chapter, or the most important aspect of this chapter, is going to be Paul Morel's affair with Clara Dawes, where they consummate their love, where they get physically intimate with each other. And we also find that as the chapter begins, we find that Paul, as an emerging painter, his confidence has also begun to grow. So we can see his growing confidence as a painter as the chapter begins. Then we find that Paul and Mrs. Morel, they take a holiday. They go to the Isle of Wight, but then Mrs. Morel, because of her ailment, because of her sickness, we find that she gets overstrained because of walking, and therefore in this chapter we come across several instances that hint that Mrs. Morel's health condition is not at all fine. It is gradually, deteriorating, and in fact she is having, a problem in carrying out daily activities. Even walking affects her much. At this moment we know that Paul has already broken up his affair. He has ended his affair with Miriam, and so just after having ended his affair with Miriam, we find him returning immediately to Clara Dawes. And then once we find that he invites Clara Dawes and they to the Clifton Grove, where they find a secluded place and they make love to each other. And after that, after having done with their love making, which is described in a very beautiful manner, in a very passionate manner. Like I said, the title of the chapter is Passion, which shows the passionate nature of this relationship between Paul and Clara. In fact, this chapter also serves, to provide readers with a positive contrast between the nature, a positive contrast with regard to the nature of relationship that exists between Paul and Clara at present, and the one that existed between Miriam and Paul. So we find that both of them, when they get physically intimate, when they consummate their love in the woods, in the grove, in Clifton Grove, we find that both of them take mutual delight. They equally, they mutually enjoy this sexual intimacy, unlike Miriam, because we found that Miriam's response towards their physical intimacy was not a spontaneous one. In fact, she appeared to be rather afraid and uncomfortable at the same time. But here we find that how Paul and Clara they take a mutual delight, which means that they happily, instinctively enjoy their physical consummation, and that throws a sharp contrast. You can say a positive contrast as well to the one-sided sacrificial sexual union of Paul and Miriam. So here we find that if we try to compare the nature of Miriam's love with that of Clara, we find that Miriam's love can be characterized as spiritual, as religious, Okay, something that fails to connect, to the earthly, something that fails to connect to the realities around. While Clara's love, Clara's love for Paul is something that can very well associate or relate to the realities of the earth. So that differentiates Miriam's love from Clara's love for Paul. So we find that after they are done with their love making in Clifton Grove, they visit a cottage in order to have tea. This cottage is owned by an old lady, and there, while they converse with each other, they discuss that what this lady would think if she knows or that Clara is a married woman who had just made love, who had just made love to a man who is not her husband. So what opinion would she have about her? So they discuss this while having tea at the at that old lady's cottage. And then we find that this old lady, she doesn't seem to be very let's say judgmental in this regard. Maybe as she's an old lady, from her experience, and maybe because of the experience that she has gathered in her life, she is intuitively able to understand the nature of their relationship. Yet we find that she doesn't appear to be judgmental at all. Rather, we find that she also enjoys the pleasure that is radiated by these two lovers, because this at this moment, this physical intimacy between Paul and Clara is at least shown to be something which is able to transcend moral judgment for the time being, because it is not Lawrence doesn't make any attempt to describe or to characterize, or let's say not characterized really, but to judge or evaluate their relationship, like to think whether it is right or wrong. He doesn't do that. Rather, it is shown as an experience, as a sudden immediate experience of sexual love between two people that is able to transcend moral judgment. So this lady also, we find that she also seems to enjoy their pleasure at the same time. So, as far as Mrs. Morel is concerned, now Mrs. Morel is kind of aware that Paul's intimacy with Clara Dawes is increasing day by day, and therefore, being his mother, she is much concerned about his social reputation, his propriety, or let's say his decency. But here I would like to point out something, that she is also concerned about Clara, because she knows that Clara is a married woman, and if anything goes wrong and scandal is spread with regard to their relationship, then this would affect Clara Dawes much more than Paul, for her being a woman. So we find that Mrs. Morel also seems to be aware of it, but then we find that although she is much concerned, she is much worried about Paul, still she condones, okay, and she gives him the permission to bring Clara to their place. So one evening we find that on one occasion Clara is invited over to their place by Paul. So she comes, and we find that she is much appreciated by Mrs. Morel. And then what happens, that very day, all of a sudden Miriam also drops in, and she finds Clara there, and all the three, Mrs. Morel, Miriam and Clara, they go and meet in the garden, and then they discuss. And the presence of Clara Dawes at Paul's place makes Miriam feel that she is unwanted, and that Clara has already replaced her in Paul's life. So it's kind of Miriam realizes that maybe their relation, that nothing is going to nothing, no reconciliation would ever take place between her and Paul, because Paul has already got involved with Clara, and that is why he has invited her over to their place. So later then, and on another occasion, we find that Clara and Paul, they go to Nottingham, they to go to a theatre in Nottingham, and we find that Mrs. Morel, she gives him the coat, the suit of William. So he puts on that coat and he goes to the theatre with Clara. And that day, and then on another occasion, I think it is on that very occasion, or no, just when they were returning from the theatre that very day, what happened that Paul, he got late and he missed the train, and he's invited or he's asked by Clara to spend the night at their place. So Paul goes to Clara's place, and there he also spends the night at her home in Stanton. And then after supper, and all of them, like Paul, Clara, and Mrs. Redford, they all play cards. So after their supper is done, and after a long delay that is made, that is caused by their playing cards. Okay, we find that Paul retires to his room, but then he waits for Mrs. Redford, to go to her room to fall asleep. So as she goes away and she's gone to bed, we find that he comes down and he again makes love to Clara. So basically the way their relationship is portrayed in this chapter by Lawrence, it is kind of a very passionate, and we find how these two people undergo a level of let's say immediate physical contact, which we just cannot explain or describe in conscious terms or in conscious terms. So after this, we find that after they are done with their love making, I'm just going back to that scene once again. After they are done, we find that these two lovers, they come back to their ordinary level of consciousness, and Paul, Paul clears off Clara's boots, because this is something that is needed in, let's say, in the everyday world, because we need to keep up such appearances. So that is also accomplished here in this scene by Lawrence, because here by cleaning Clara's boots, Paul simply attempts to restore her respectability as a woman. And so another point I would like to, this chapter is, as far as the other themes are concerned, those themes are not much highlighted in this chapter. We only get to see that how Paul and Clara, they get involved in a passionate relationship, and how and what impact it also casts upon Miriam when she finds Clara at Paul's place. So basically we find that after this Paul continues to see Miriam, and from time to time, and we find that he also has discussions with Miriam about Clara's marriage with Baxter Dawes, where we find that Paul Paul compares Clara's marriage with Baxter with that of his own mother and father. And there, this discussion is important in the sense where he draws a comparison between Clara's relationship with Baxter and the relationship between his father and mother. It is kind of used to underline the theme that full physical satisfaction also constitutes, or full physical satisfaction is something which also requires a stage in the fulfillment of the human being. That just physical satisfaction or just to be physically intimate with someone is not enough. That fulfillment, okay, must be there. Like we saw that Paul got physically involved with Miriam, but that did not lead to his fulfillment as a human being. So that's why their relationship ended, because Paul found that both of them have actually failed to have a fulfilling sexual relationship where both of them could have a mutual delight, since Miriam failed. So this is something that is underlined through this, that as far that human fulfillment is also necessary in life in order to it's just that physical satisfaction, for physical satisfaction, this stage is equally necessary, which refers to human fulfillment, like I said. And so we find that the kind of passionate relationship, or the way Lawrence describes the relationship, this passionate consummation of their love in Clifton Grove, we find that it makes us feel the love of Clara and Paul as a sensuous reality. Some things with which we all can relate, readers can relate, while Miriam's love appears to be spiritualized and and religious in nature, which doesn't seem to connect to earthly things, and therefore it lacks that sensuous reality. So with this, I come to the end of discussion of this chapter. I hope you like the lecture if you find it helpful. So if you really like my channel and you find these lectures helpful for the understanding of several literary texts, and this text as far as this lecture is concerned, do like it, share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Until then, bye bye.